So Reb, how did you get started with music?
How I got started with music. I was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. And, music was a big thing in the little town I grew up in, Mill Valley. There were a lot of musicians living there. My father was very musical. Not that he did much with it, but he was always singing, always playing music, mostly classical, but some show tunes and early folk music like the Kingston Trio. That dates me a little bit. But in high school, my favorite heroine of all time was Joan Baez. And then when Bob Dylan came along, it took me a little while to get used to his voice, but he became my hero too. So I became a real folk music aficionado. And of course, what we did in high school, we didn't drag race down Main Street. We didn't go to the movies that much, but we all went to parties where we played guitar and sang. So I learned how to play out of a book, and also at parties where somebody would say, well, this is an A minor. Oh, and this is an E minor. So I kind of patched together some guitar. I never became a great guitarist at age 16. Later on in life, I picked up a guitar again. This was many, many years later, so I haven't had all those years of guitar playing. I sort of put it down for a while. But of course, I always loved music anyway. I was mostly a listener. But I came across a guitar in my closet that had been given to me by an ex-boyfriend, and I pulled it out and realized that it needed new strings, put the new strings on it, and it was that 72 Martin over there that's just a wonderful guitar. I just took some lessons and I got back into it big time. Now I played guitar for quite a while before I started to sing. I would sing only by myself, only in the car, in the shower, by myself. And one day, sitting with some musical people, I just had to share a song with them, and I apologized profusely. I said, I'll have to sing this for you because I don't have the music and I don't have a recording. I'll have to sing it for you. I'm really sorry. And I found out at that time, one of the people in the group was a music teacher, and he said, there's nothing wrong with your voice. In fact, you sound fine. All you need to do is get a little confidence and breathe a little better. I said, oh, really? Always had a secret desire to sing. So I started singing in a little folk group, and then I started taking voice lessons. And I guess it's been about 9 years since I started studying voice, and actually, voice became my main instrument. I didn't really keep up the guitar the way I had hoped. I wanted to be, a classical guitarist. I kept up a little folk guitar. I learned a little jazz. I was in a little, backup player for a jazz group, old-timey jazz group for a while. But voice has become my big thing. And so after 9 years of voice lessons, I'm now a soprano in a chorus, Ars Choralis, and I just love it. My next lifetime, I'm going to be a diva. I didn't quite make it this time, but next time, watch out. Then I got interested in songwriting, and I have written a number of songs, certainly not hundreds, but I've always loved to write. I always loved to write poetry, and so poetry and music, well, what is that? It's songs. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. It's my big passion, music. Performing, I love to perform. I had stage fright like the Moose did at first, but after performing, oops, I think my microphone is just a little tidbit on performing, that I did get over my stage fright, and I pretty much have gotten over it, except for occasionally the fingers. That's why the mic went off, because I was moving around. Yep. I'm not Italian, but, I talk with my hands a lot. Anyway, that is it in a nutshell about my music background.
which doesn't emphasize the breadth of her skills. She's quite a songwriter, and a broad genre. For example, the song Lily of the Tabby that we mentioned earlier is basically almost a blues shuffle kind of thing, a kind of, who was that old guy, the old black guy? John Hurt.
Mississippi John Hurt.
And
one of my favorite
actually, one
musicians.
of her first guitar teachers was Tom Limbaugh, Rush Limbaugh's nephew, who did not approve of Uncle Rush.
No, not at all. But he taught me a few blues licks.
And she's studied much more than I have. She has voice training, and she studied jazz guitar. She has much more theory.
Well, my musical knowledge is more up here, especially when it comes to guitar, than it is here, unfortunately. This guy's been playing for 30 years, and...
40 now.
40?
Yeah.
40 years.
Yep. Last December was the 40th anniversary of my getting a guitar for Christmas. It's funny because it's very hard to describe. My first guitar was a $9.99 special from a place called Thieves Market, which is it was from like a discount store from before there were discount stores. Think of a dollar store guitar. But you know, by any standards, from any guitarist, this was unplayable. You know, so.
I remember those guitars. I think one of the ones that I'd seen was a Stella.
Well, these things made Stellas look good.
Yeah, I had a Stella for a while.
I have a Stella downstairs that Peter Head of Pitchfork Militia brought to our benefit and gave me the Stella. It's the Stella Harmony. Harmony was another one. A lot of the real old blues players from the 20s and 30s, they played Stellas and harmonies. And that is what they're good for. I mean, they're very rough, raw guitars, but you can make them do the blues. And this thing was really about the equivalent of a cigar box with rubber, wire bands on it. But that's how badly I wanted to play. And then within 6 months, I graduated to a second-hand nylon string. To call it a classical guitar would be to give it far too much pretension. But
Yeah.
it actually had a French name, Egmont, E-G-M-O-N-T. It was an Egmont. Who knows if it was actually French or whatever. And then within a year, I was playing a Gibson.
So when did you two start playing together?
About 6 years ago.
Yeah, I would like to tell just sort of a little intro to that story, because the first time I ever saw Michael the Moose, and I knew him as the Moose then, I was on stage with a group that I was playing with at the time called Lazy River. It was composed at that time, it had been a quartet, and it had become, over time, a trio. And the three of us, two women and one man, were up there doing our folk music thing, and at a folk festival in Poughkeepsie, and Michael apparently was the organizer. And I looked down from the stage and I saw this guy with a long white beard and long hair and a cane, looking very ferocious, and I thought, I wouldn't want to mess with that guy. I don't know what he thought of the music, but I did run into him later at the Hudson Valley Folk Guild, and he got up and played. He played his Hawaiian guitar, and I was very impressed with his playing, and I was very impressed with what he said. He said, "I'm very nervous. I don't know why I'm doing this." And I thought, that takes a lot of something to admit that you're nervous on stage. We saw each other a number of times. We got to know each other at the Folk Guild, and came to a point where the trio had become a duo, and then it had become a solo, and I was not the soloist. So I didn't really have anybody to play with, and I liked ensemble work. I was a little too skitterish to be a soloist, So I went up to Michael and I asked him if he ever played with other people, and he said, well, why not? So we began to practice together, and pretty soon we evolved into the duo Redwood Moose.